To all who are new here, my name is Dr. Michelle Henney, and I'd like to welcome you to Releve Sports Medicine's Virtual Journal Club. For additional webinar education opportunities, you can visit our website and register directly for the webinar or sign up for the email list to be notified of upcoming webinars. We are continuing to update our schedules, so check back often. This video will be available for review after this journal club. The information contained in the video content represents the views and opinions of the presenters and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Releve Sports Medicine. The mere appearance of video content on the website does not constitute an endorsement by RSM or its affiliates of such video content. The video content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The video content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have read or seen on the site. RSM hereby disclaims any and all liability to any party for any direct, indirect, implied, punitive, special, incidental, or other consequential damages arising directly or indirectly from any use of the video content, which is provided as is and without warranties. For all flight trainers intending to get live CEUs from the VOC, you will receive an email 1 hour after the webinar concludes, which includes a link to the combined quiz, evaluation, and assessment. You will have up to 72 hours to complete the quiz and the evaluation. This email will come from customercare@gotowebinar.com. Please ensure that this is done to receive your statement of credit. If you don't receive the follow-up email or you have any other concerns, then contact us via our email at journalclub@relevesportsmedicine.com. Once the statement of credit is available for download from our website, you will receive an email notification, and that for the last webinar was just posted this week. If you have any questions during the webinar, please submit the question and we will review questions at the conclusion of the presentation. If you cannot see the PowerPoint slides and you're accessing the webinar from your mobile phone, swipe the screen to the left or to the right and the slides will become visible. The recording will be available for review from our website tomorrow. Our speaker today is Dr. Jacob Miller. He was raised on a ranch near Elko, Nevada, and spent much of his time on horseback, either working as a cowboy or competing in rodeo. He completed a bachelor's degree in microbiology from Colorado State University and medical degree from Creighton University in Omaha. His training took him to Greeley and the North Colorado Family Medicine Residency program, followed by a fellowship in primary care sports medicine at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. Dr. Miller practiced for 8 years in Aberdeen, South Dakota, where he served as head team physician of Northern State University. He currently works with Intermountain Health in Grand Junction, Colorado, where he is a team physician for Caprock Academy. Dr. Miller practices non-operative sports medicine and athlete medical care while maintaining a patient-centered approach. His clinical interests include exercise prescription, bone health, athlete mental health, concussion, and musculoskeletal pain and injury. He is passionate about education and research, serving as a clinical associate professor for the University of South Dakota Sanford School of Medicine and conducting studies in rodeo injury, concussion management, and student athlete well-being. He is speaking today on athlete mental health.
Thank you very much, and it's really a pleasure to be able to speak with you today. I'm very thankful for the opportunity to come here. Let's see.
And you should get a little pop-up on your screen that says if you want to share your screen.
There we go. Let's see. I apologize. I'm not seeing the pop-up.
Okay, let me do that again.
Let me see. Still working on it. I apologize.
No problem. And that So did the pop-up appear?
It came up, and then it's asking me to change my system settings in order to allow it to happen.
Okay.
That's
And,
what I'm working on right now.
okay. Do you know, did you happen to send a copy of your PowerPoint to Anne? Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Let me run and grab her. I just saw her walk by. I'll try this one more time just to see if maybe we get a different outcome. Technology, hooray. I looked in our folder and I didn't see that there, but if this doesn't work, then what I'll do is I'll open up your PowerPoint and I'll share it from my screen.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you for your patience, everybody.
Yes, or I might be able to log into the journal club from there.
Okay, yeah, I'll get it. Sorry.
And if I have to log out and log back in real quick, I'm happy to do that too if needed.
Share drive under the journal club tab, so it's share drive, journal club, and then presenters, and then the month ahead.
Yeah, it's the only thing is for some reason I'm not seeing it in here.
Okay, so one of those is in the PowerPoint. Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Can you talk to a patient about getting her scheduled today?
Yes, 1 second though. I'm on a webinar right now. And we're trying to get started. And so did you get the pop-up again or not yet?
I have it. When I click show, it says that GoToWebinar would like to capture this computer screen. My system preferences, it then takes me there, asks if I will allow it to do so, to record content from my screen and audio, and it is clicked as open. There was something that said that it may need to be closed down and reopened again before it started to work, and so I can log out and log back in and see if that works.
She just put it in the group.
Yes, I do have that down. I just received your PowerPoint. So what I'll do, if you want to try and log out and log back in, I'm not sure if that's a time-consuming task. Otherwise, I'm downloading your PowerPoint now.
Let me try
and
it
then
real
I'll just off of my screen here. And you'll just, I'll moderate and you'll let me know when to
advance.
when to change the slide.
Okay. There we go. Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. Well, thank you again, everybody, for joining today. I sure appreciate it. My name is Jake Miller. I'm here in Grand Junction, Colorado, and we're going to be talking today about athlete well-being and focusing more on the context of athlete mental health as it pertains to the athletic trainer. Next slide. I have no disclosures. Next slide. These are some of our study objectives today. So we're going to define what athlete well-being actually means. We're going to discuss some of the common stressors that are placed upon athletes, look at any patterns of behavior or of athletic approach that may negatively impact wellness, look at methods to strive to improve athlete well-being, and lastly, to discuss what the athletic trainer does within that role to optimize mental health. Next slide. To start out, I do want to point out that the NCAA has really done a fantastic job recently in trying to emphasize student athlete well-being, and mental health. And they have put on their website a whole bunch of resources and toolkits and various protocols that can be used by member institutions to help foster athlete well-being and mental health. And so I would encourage you to visit that site if you haven't, and to look and see how those things may apply within your institution or organization. Next slide. The journal article that we'll also be referencing as part of this presentation is this American Medical Society for Sports Medicine position statement published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine within 2020 that looks at best practices within mental health issues and psychological factors. However, this article focuses primarily upon specific diagnoses and screening practices. What I'd like to start out with really here this afternoon is, how do we define athlete well-being? What does that entail? And how can we work to promote those best practices within our athletes? And you'll hear me kind of switch back and forth between using the phrases athlete or student athlete, because many of the places that we work do entail student athletes, and sometimes it's easier to work within the confines of the educational institution versus just talking about athletes in general. Next slide. So we'll get some help from Usain Bolt on this. So when we talk about athlete well-being, let's make some definitions of what those things mean. An athlete is a person who is trained or skilled in exercises, sports, or games requiring physical strength, agility, or stamina. And well-being is the state of being happy, healthy, or prosperous. Now, just within looking at these two things, go ahead and click the advance. We therefore have to understand that being a well athlete has to entail more than just being not injured and being winning or being successful all the time. It has to entail something else beyond that. We also need to define what does it actually mean to be an athlete? And I'd be curious to hear within this setting who here identifies as an athlete. We'll delve more into that concept of athlete identity here too in just a moment. Go ahead and advance. One more. I also want to bring up these fundamentals of sports psychology. These are shared by Alex Cohen, who is a U.S. Olympic Committee sports psychologist. And he talks about various aspects of what it means to be ready for competition. One of those will include preparation, which means that the athlete has gone through some various permutations to help themselves be ready for competition. Some of these include having anticipated and overcome any obstacles that impair performance readiness. Some of these are physical, but many of them are mental or behavioral as well. And then he also brings up this concept of resilience, which he defines as a positive adaptation to adversity. Go ahead and click the next advancement. So being able to overcome and being able to make positive adaptations once again, requires more than just physical readiness. It really requires that a person has mentally gone through hoops, that they've been able to work their way through a wide variety of things to help them understand and know how they can perform best within an adverse environment. Go ahead and advance, please. And some of these things require more, once again, than just the physical component. They require a stable foundation and life balance. They require being able to fall back on other things besides sports performance. Next slide. We're going to borrow a quote from John Candy here, because he gave some sage advice to the Jamaican bobsled team within the movie Cool Runnings. And this was that advice. Go ahead and advance. A gold medal is a wonderful thing, but if you're not enough without it, you're never going to be enough with it. Go ahead and advance. What does it take then to be enough? Advance, please. Let's circle back for just a moment to that concept of the athletic identity. Why would a person want to try to assume that identity, and what does it do for them? There can be a couple of different reasons. One is this concept of self-image, that when we do our various events that we are like somebody else. Some people may say that when I do that chase down block, and I'm like LeBron James. Or with my athletic body, I am beautiful, I am handsome, I am a desirable human being because I look a certain way. There's a sense of self-worth that comes from sports as well. Being able to do things can actually help us feel better about doing other things in our lives. So we feel accepted and worthwhile. And lastly, there's a sense of empowerment that can happen through that athletic endeavor. Because I'm athletic, I get certain perks, or I can use that platform to impact others as well. Next slide. This sense of the athletic body image as well is one that many will point to as a reason for being athletically engaged. But what does that athletic body look like? Does it look like this? Go ahead and advance. Does it look like Tyson Gay, a U.S. sprinter? Advance. Does it look like Mia Hamm, a U.S. women's soccer player? Advance. Does it look like this high-level marathon runner? Go ahead and advance. Or is it this sumo wrestler from Japan? Advance. Is it this German Paralympic athlete, obviously very excited with his athletic success? Advance. Or does it look like our gold medal winning U.S. curling team? All of these people may identify as athletes, but notice the very broad array of what that actually looks like. And so when we think of the ideal athletic body, we have to be able to recognize that that can encompass a lot of different ways that we can look, and the athlete should accept that as well. Next slide. And what if at some point that athletic identity becomes threatened? One of the ways that can happen is through various kinds of injuries, where we can start to lose that sense of athletic identity because we're not able to do what we would like to do anymore. Maybe we feel less competent because of the injury. Maybe we're worried that we're going to re-injure ourselves when we restart athletic competition. And then again, this comes back just to the very foundation. If our bedrock is the athletic identity, what happens when that gets taken away? Who am I when I can't compete? Next slide. This can lead to a whole host of emotions that happen when that kind of identity gets taken away. We can start to feel sad or depressed. We may not sleep or eat very well. There can be anger and frustration that follow as a result of that. There can also be altered pain perception, where all of a sudden we were feeling pain, but now we're not feeling it quite so much, or the other way, where now we're hypersensitive to pain. And all of those can impact the return to athletics. Next slide. So it's important that when we think of athlete mental health, that we also incorporate this idea of athlete well-being or athlete wholeness, because those other aspects of our personality really allow us the opportunity to have some things to fall back on. If we have multiple facets to our personality, when one gets threatened, we can always utilize the others as well. That plays into this biopsychosocial spiritual model of well-being and wholeness, where we strengthen and utilize other aspects of our personality to help shore up the others. And where there is balance, there is well-being. And where there's well-being, there's increased resilience to obstacles. Next slide. Now, of course, this all exists along a spectrum. And we're over here at the far left, we're thriving, we're sleeping well, we're feeling energetic, we're able to take whatever comes our way, and we're able to thrive despite obstacles. Next slide. But of course, there's going to be periods where things are just a little bit out of whack, when we're not quite able to function as well as we would like. Maybe we're slightly nervous, maybe we're feeling some sad or intrusive thoughts, but we're not to that point where we are needing some extra help, or where it's interfering with our function. And that's really where the line within the middle starts to play in. When stress or when dysfunction starts to impact our functional abilities, and we're not working at that high level, that's when we start to need some help and assistance. And that's where mental health can start to play a role as well. Next slide. Let's talk about some specific well-being measures that play a role within athlete wholeness, and how we can help to advocate for optimization of some of these things. Go ahead and advance. These include things like nutrition. Go ahead and advance, please. And sleep, and physical well-being, and mental health, and substance use as well. Balance within each of these facets allows us to try to adapt to adversity and overcome obstacles, so that we can be enough for athletic success and personal success. Next slide. We're going to examine each of these one by one today. Some of you may already have some of these things built into your institutions, and some of you may already be advocating for these things. If so, thank you very much for doing so. Let's start with nutrition, which is more of an external measure. Many of us recognize the great benefit that adequate fueling can have upon athletic success. I always find the math of this fascinating, that for a 5'4", 110-pound, 20-year-old female athlete, just to lay on the couch and breathe requires 1,250 calories. That's quite a few calories. Now, add to that any kind of high-level physical activity, and we instantly jump at least 2 to 2.5 times that calorie requirement. So around 3,000 calories just to practice during the day. During periods of high intensity, that can get even higher. Without those kind of calories, the body then starts to kind of rob Peter to pay Paul. We start to divert energy from other necessary functions, and we can develop broken bones. Menstrual problems start to rear their heads as well. And so it's very important that we fuel adequately, which once again gives us that small buffer so that we can be able to overcome obstacles that may come our way. Next slide. Sleep is another, and we're starting to recognize the grand importance of sleep within our athletic success. I think it's interesting that a 12 to 18-year-old youth needs 8 to 10 hours of sleep. That's about the same as a toddler. And adults need at least 7 hours of sleep to function appropriately. Without those things, once again, we start to divert energy needs away from necessary things, and we find that we actually increase our injury risk. Go ahead and advance. This is an important red sentence, that athletes who get enough sleep have half the injuries of those who don't. So the more we can do to advocate for adequate sleep to enhance athlete well-being, the less injured they'll get. Next slide. And I think this is a fun illustration as well of what high-level athletes use to prioritize their sleep. Notice that the athletes like LeBron James, Roger Federer, and Michelle Wie really try to prioritize sleep by getting 10 to 12 hours of sleep a night. The one that's probably struggled the most with injuries within this elite group to me is Tiger Woods, who really only got about 4 to 5 hours of sleep during his heyday, and now he struggles a lot with injuries. And so this, I think, can help us recognize the grand importance of advocating for sleep. Next slide. Let's talk about substance use for just a moment. And these are some newest data from the NCAA Student Athlete Health and Wellness Study from 2024. We find that about 70% of our student athletes use alcohol. This is within the last 6 months or so. The last 10 to 15 years has seen a huge rise within the number of student athletes who vape, at about 22%. And then, of course, marijuana use has also increased about 25%. With the increasing availability and legalization of marijuana. Thankfully, there are some others that have dropped over the course of about the last 10 years. Cocaine use and methamphetamine use is down quite a bit, likely owing to increased emphasis on mental health disorders and the harmful effects of these drugs. Next slide. It's important when we discover that a student athlete is using some kind of substance as to why they are using it. Oftentimes there's some kind of compensation for something else. This may include some underlying stress. There can be underlying mental health disorders as well that can cause that substance use. Some people think that it may help them do better within their sport, but the bottom line is that there is generally not a performance benefit to almost any kind of substance use. And of course, there's still the legal and school aspects of substance use. And so these are things that we can share with our athletes when they ask about substances or when we find out that they are using them. Next slide. And then we get to athlete mental health. And this is a very nuanced and complex kind of discussion, particularly for student athletes. When you think of the great stresses that our student athletes are under, there are a pile of stresses that can lead to negative health aspects. Some of these include just the constant training schedule that once we try and fit that full-time job of weightlifting and then practice and then team meetings in, all of that really piles up and makes a person feel rather unbalanced. There can also be stressors that come from coaches, parents, friends, team cultures. All of those things can play a role. And then there may be underlying mental health conditions that get unmasked by those stressors. 1/3 of adults have some kind of anxiety disorder, and about 15% of college freshmen will have some kind of suicidal ideation at baseline. So it's important that we keep those numbers in mind when striving to address student athlete mental health. Next slide. We're starting to become more cognizant of this within the news over the last 10 to 15 years. We've learned about Kevin Love suffering a panic attack while in game. There's been numerous reports of both student athletes and pro athletes who use substances of some kind to be able to cope. There's been increased emphasis on use of psychiatric or behavioral health resources to help the athletes cope. And this quote from Jeannie Buss kind of sums it up. We've invested in all these state-of-the-art facilities and cryogenic chambers, hydro pools and all that, but we haven't focused on mental health. That's the next level of care. When we're able to focus on mental health, we're able to help our athletes reach that next level of performance as well. Next slide. So what's the athletic trainer's role within fostering this kind of environment. There are certain things that definitely fall within the purview of athletic training that can help to enhance athlete mental health. One is that we can always be advocates. We can strive to enhance athlete well-being by fostering those elements that we've talked about. How do we make nutrition better? Within my school, one of the things that we learned was that the student athlete practices often ran right up until the time that the school cafeteria closed. And so they were not able to get good meals after their practice ended. And so that was a great opportunity for us to advocate for. We need the cafeteria to stay open just a little bit longer so our student athletes can eat after practice. We can recognize the signs and symptoms of mental health disorders, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. We can screen for those mental health conditions, generally within our pre-participation physicals or the end of year screening as well, and help to identify those athletes who are struggling. The athletic trainer is frequently the first point of care for student athlete concerns about their mental health. They nicely straddle that athletic environment plus the clinical environment, and they can help student athletes to access the resources that they need. Thankfully, because this takes a lot of pressure off, it's not the responsibility of the athletic trainer to make the diagnosis for specific mental health disorders. It's not their responsibility to provide treatment in isolation, and it's also not their job to try to protect student athletes or other athletes from the consequences of poor mental health decisions, whether that's substance abuse, absenteeism. Their job is to help them access resources, and that often serves as the entry point. Next slide. Some common signs of mental health that we can look at are things like an athlete seeming depressed or anxious, just outright. More often, they're those small things, those things like being late to practice, not making it to team meetings, seeming more irritable. When the coach tries to engage them, they disengage at that point. Those are all signs that something may be going on that we need to pay attention to and try to help our student athletes access proper care. Next slide. There are proven mental health screenings that can be applied. Some of these will include the PHQ-9, which is specific to depression screening. The GAD-7s, more specific to anxiety disorders. Both of these can be given within the pre-participation screening environment, or we would always give them as well during the exit interviews for the year as well, and just make sure that we were helping student athletes to access the resources that they needed. Next slide. If we suspect that a student athlete may be struggling with some problems, there are some helpful questions to ask that are open-ended, such as, what's troubling you? Tell me what's going on. Are you thinking of hurting yourself, or is someone hurting you? Are there thoughts you're having about suicide? And if so, do you have a plan for how you might do it? Next slide. As healthcare providers, we can provide that safe place to talk. We can make it okay to talk about these things. I think it's important also that we speak openly about the possibility of difficulties. Maybe we've had our own mental health struggles that we feel comfortable sharing, and that can be just something as simple as, you know, within my life, I've had some hard times as well, and I sense that you may be going through some stuff as well. Would you be willing to talk with me about it? Giving that invite opens up that space for the athlete to share what is troubling him or her. We can make those resources available as well. One thing that takes the pressure off is that we don't have to try to solve the problem there within the moment for that athlete. We can simply be that shoulder to lean on. We can offer that invite to really help them to access the resources that they need. And one thing I think is always really important is to thank the athlete for sharing things with you. It's hard for us to engage in that. So being able to share with them, I'm really thankful that you shared this with me. We care about you. We want you to be happy. We want you to be healthy. And so this gave us the opportunity to do that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And then as much as we can, we need to do what's possible to relieve the stressors. Once again, advocating for that athletic well-being environment. Next slide. We're going to go through just a couple case studies and try to identify those aspects of well-being that are being infringed upon for each of these student athletes. So this is Jade. She's a really high-level distance runner within her high school. She is coming to see us because there is concern for a tibial shaft stress fracture. She does have one prior. He asked about her volumes, and she shared, well, I was running 70 to 80 miles per week before this happened. And the question that we might want to ask next is, that seems like a lot of miles. How well are you fueling for that? Next slide. We find that Jade's only eating about 1,600 to 1,700 calories per day. That's way below what we need to run 70 to 80 miles per week. We ask about her ideal running weight, and she says about 115 pounds. Right now I'm 120. And say, well, why 115 is your best? And she says, well, you don't see the field athletes running distance, do you? So then we've uncovered something new. Besides Jade just wanting to really run distance well, we discover that she perceives how she looks a certain way, and that she feels she needs to be at a certain weight to be successful. So this involves nutrition, obviously. It involves the physical aspect, but there's also mental health that's playing into this as well. There may be a question of body dysmorphic disorder that's also playing a role in this. Next slide. We then have Whitney. So Whitney's also a high school student athlete, but she's a high-level tennis player, and she's really, really good. She competes a lot. She wants to go pro, but she has this nagging shoulder injury that's just not really recovering. And so we sit Whitney down and we ask what's happening with her rehab. Next slide. And Whitney shares with us that she's really struggling, not just in ways related to her shoulder, but that she wants to be perfect, and she's feeling a lot of pressure from coaches and parents to get there. This pressure's led to some stress. She's engaged in some cutting behavior because of this, and she's fostering some suicidal thoughts. No plan as of yet, but she's struggling because of that. Thankfully, she's been able to see her counselor to talk about these stressful symptoms and some depression that she's dealing with as well. And so we can advocate for Whitney on this up front as well. Next slide. Next, let's talk about Doug. So Doug's a college pitcher, previously pretty successful, but recently fallen on some hard times. He was diagnosed with ADHD late in high school and has since come up as academically ineligible and with a recent positive drug screen. Next slide. You asked Doug about this, and you find that, well, that's how he's been managing his ADHD for a long time, is with marijuana. He didn't really have resources to get the other medications that he needed. And now he's kind of stuck because he's been using marijuana so long to treat the ADHD. He now uses it daily, and he's addicted. There is also a history of some drug abuse among family members. So there's physical aspects of this, but there's also the mental health aspect that's related to substance abuse as well. Next slide. Next, let's talk about Cody. He's our high school rodeo athlete, and he too is heavily engaged, not just in rodeo, but in other various academic pursuits. He has National Honor Society. He plays music. He's just engaged a lot, and rodeo also takes up a lot of his time. Next slide. Cody's coming to see you though, because he has started to also experience some very stressful feelings, and he's having some tremors that are starting to freak him out. You talk to him and he admits that he's feeling really stressed because he's worried that he might fail. He's worried that he might not live up to the expectations that he's set for himself, but also that his dad has set for him. His dad is super competitive, and he has this idea that if I don't do well, my dad won't love me. He's also not able to do the other activities that fill his cup, such as go to church, hang out with friends. He's not sleeping well because of the constant travel, and he doesn't eat very well either because of that. So we're starting to pile up on all of those well-being factors. And once they reach that critical point, the body starts to respond. Next slide. And last, let's talk about Lila. Now, Lila, once again, super successful. She's on scholarship for her college, but this is not her first college. This is actually her second college because she, quote, just didn't fit in with the other program very well. She's coming to see us because she's having some spasms and cramps after she competes, and she's also having some syncopal episodes as well. You talk to Lila, next slide, and find out that she also is only eating about 1,500 calories a day. She wants to be slender, she wants to be sleek, and really cut through the water well. She too has some tendencies for perfection. And that stress has caused her to engage in some cutting activities since early high school. She's got ADHD, she's got anxiety. She's seen counselors previously, but has been kind of discouraged by her parents because they don't believe in that mental health stuff, and that if a person feels that they are depressed and stressed, that's just a sign that they're not able to handle the pressure. In addition, she's also undergoing a workup for POTS from her cardiologist. So she's ticking all 5 of those well-being measures. And I say this just to demonstrate that athlete mental health is complex and it can be multifaceted, and it can really incorporate all those well-being measures. So we need to be mindful that people can be experiencing a lot, and that we need to be willing to examine all of those facets, not just 1 or 2. Next slide. So to try to combat this, once again, the NCAA has really been good at striving to create toolkits and various resources that team physicians and athletic trainers can access to help enhance mental health for student athletes. Some of these toolkits entail preventive strategies that can be helpful. They encourage the medical staff to identify resources and to create an assessment and management plan for mental health crises. So we're going to go through something that we did at my institution to help build a culture of mental health and student athlete wellness for all involved. Next slide. So I would present this to you as our student athlete behavioral health guidelines. Next slide. Once again, first thing that we want to do was try to create a culture. Go ahead and advance for me, please. We wanted to create a culture where we were teaching and demonstrating good principles. We wanted our medical staff, our coaching staff, and school administration to serve as good examples of practicing good wholeness and good mental health. These included trying to create the environment for forgiveness and growth, of selflessness, plus humility as well. All of those we felt would help our student athletes feel that we had their best interests at heart, and that it was okay for them to grow within that process as well. Next slide. We also wanted to do what we could to advocate for good behavioral health practices. These included striving for optimal sleep, striving to optimize nutritional practices as well. We wanted to create a supportive environment for those student athletes, encourage stability and predictability. This meant try and keep your weight training at about the same time every day. Try and keep your practices the same length. This lets student athletes feel that there's some kind of a scaffold or template to their day that they're able to plan around. Say what we mean and mean what we say. This means being honest with student athletes, not over-promising or under-promising, but being straight with them about what it was going to take to succeed, what their role on that team was, and how they could foster that good environment as well. We also tried to identify the resources on campus that our student athletes could access. Next slide. What do we do when we're concerned that our student athlete has a mental health problem? Go ahead and advance for me, please. These involved asking some of those golden questions that we talked about earlier. What's going on with you? Notice that there's a change. What can we do to help you at this point? Go ahead and advance. Maybe we've had that similar experience that we talked about where we struggled with our mental health or we made poor decisions that we were then able to overcome. Next slide. That normalizes the conversation. Bring up that topic. Normalize the conversation, even if it's suicide. Ask that question. What's going on right now with you? Are you thinking about hurting yourself? Are you thinking about killing yourself? Those conversations give that student athlete the opportunity to share what they're thinking and what they're feeling. Go ahead and advance. Plan to have that resource to share, whether it's the counselor's office, whether it's a psychiatrist in town. Offer some way for that student athlete to get help. Next slide. And know where to go for answers yourself. Make sure you're taking care of your own mental health and your own well-being. Next slide. And then we listed all those resources, and we found it interesting that there were so many resources that we didn't know about. There were various independent clinics in town that we had never heard of. We also learned new things about the resources on campus and what they did so that we can utilize them for other preventive tools. Next slide. We then created this gradation of various behavioral health events, and these went through mild, moderate, severe, or critical grades based upon what the student athlete was experiencing. Mild events primarily dealt with those things that weren't impacting functioning right now, but the student athlete brought them up, or we could tell they were starting to act somewhat different. And these offered various levels of support, including the athlete being offered counseling, talking with the team doctor within that next month, just to check in, make sure things are going okay. Moderate was when those concerns started to interfere with functioning. It's like we talked about, we'd crossed that line. So we needed to start to intervene in some way. Those student athletes would have weekly check-ins with their ATCs. Counseling was scheduled for them so that they'd be able to go. They were meeting with team physician monthly, and there may be some medication management that was involved. Next slide. A frequent question that we got was, but they don't want to access resources. There's stigma that's involved, or they don't think it's that bad. What do we do at that point? We taught that patients have autonomy. This is a principle that describes the right of patients to make decisions about their medical care without the healthcare provider trying to influence their decisions. Now, this means that the healthcare provider educates and encourages, but doesn't make the decision for the patient. But we also need to understand that patient autonomy does not mean that the patient controls decision-making. This is a partnership between the patient and the physician or the athletic training staff. It means that we share our thoughts, we share concerns, we maybe meet each other halfway, or sometimes we may reach that point where we're like, I'm not willing to do that, I'm not willing to offer that resource to you because of what's going on at this point. So we share, we partner, and that is a conversation that needs to happen. Where does this patient autonomy end? When it presents a direct threat both to the student athlete or those around him or her. Next slide. Once again, what should I do? We continue to support. We continue to encourage if they don't want to access resources. We engage the village, essentially. We engage the athletic training staff, or if there's coaches, friends, family. We probably don't use family enough, to be honest with you, but we try to help that village surround that student athlete with love and with support. Next slide. How do we know if they're safe to participate? Most of the time, those who are undergoing mental health struggles can, and in some cases should, safely participate within the athletic environment. There can be inherent support that stems from them. Friends, there's teammates. Exercise itself is very, very good for mental health. And so we generally try to encourage student athletes to stay within that environment just as much as they can, as long as it's good for them and as long as it's good for the team as well. Next slide. Sometimes that led to a discussion, though, as far as what was good for the student athlete and what was good for the team. Sometimes the team environment is not the optimal environment for a student athlete. Sometimes it's the source of stress. So we need to have that conversation about how do we maximize goals for everyone involved. And this involved a care conference. We loved holding these. This is an opportunity to really clear the air, to discuss what the student athlete is experiencing, how that experience impacts the coaching staff, how it impacts the other teammates around them, and how do we make it the best environment for all. This could be requested at any point by any member of anybody on that team. Sometimes it was a medical meeting where HIPAA sensitive things were discussed, and then really only the medical team plus the patient was involved, and the student athlete had to give their permission for a coach or outside influences to be part of it too. But we always strived to encourage that student athlete to have all parties be involved in that meeting. Once again, this was their medical care, so if they did not want that, they didn't have to have that. The care conference defined the support that was needed for student athletes. It made changes to the practice or training schedule. It talked about what the rules of travel were and what the rules regarding participation in sport were. Next slide. This allowed the opportunity to set expectations too. We held the policy that a student athlete needed to meet the same participation requirements as the rest of the team in order to compete. They couldn't have mental health problems all week and not go to practice and then show up on Saturday expecting to play. They needed to be taking part similarly to other people so they could be a full part of the team within the competition environment. Now that did not mean that they couldn't be a part of the team in other ways. Maybe they were there on the sidelines to cheer. Maybe they had a reduced training schedule. Maybe they were not able to travel, but they could be at home games. All of those things were part of that care conference conversation. And both the coach and the student athlete were able to share those things with each other within the context of a healthcare environment with sometimes mediation from a counselor, athletic training staff, or the team physician involved as well. Next slide. And then we'd fill this plan out. We'd put it in writing. This wasn't a binding contract, but it was more like a guideline. This was like a study plan that the student athlete could use in order to maximize participation and health. Next slide. What if we get to that severe or critical phase? When we get to severe, we're very concerned that a student athlete may be experiencing something that is threatening to either themselves or those around them. Critical is when we know it's present. Next slide. So in those situations, a critical status happened when a person was having suicidal or homicidal thoughts with a plan, means, and the intent to bring them to action. This is where patient autonomy stops. The student athlete does not have the ability to direct their own care, and activating emergency protocols happens at that point. This is either calling 911. The student athlete was not left alone. There was someone, either the athletic trainer or the coach, who was there with them. We always strive to encourage them to transport themselves to a higher level of medical care or the police station if that was necessary. But if not, we called EMS or 911 at that point. Next slide. Now, what if we're not at that point? We're in that severe stage. The student athlete is not endorsing those kinds of problems, but we're still really, really worried. That's the hardest part of being involved in caring for athletes, is that sometimes we hit this impasse where it's not bad enough that we need to forcefully intervene, but it's not good enough that we feel very comfortable with it. And we shared that very bluntly with the coaching staff and with the administration, that that's the world that we live in within the medical team sometimes. Once again, we use our village. We use the athletic training staff. We use team physicians. We still have that person talk with coaches, with their family. If there's a need for them to go home that weekend, we would encourage them to go home and just check in frequently to make sure that they're okay, that we're sharing, that we love them, we care about them, and we want them to be safe. Next slide. So for the administrators, who are they going to call? Once again, they're not expected to diagnose or treat any medical condition. Their job when there was were things less than critical was that their first point was to call the athletic training staff. We could utilize a care conference if there was a need for that. If it got critical, they were to call 911. So we tried to make it very simple for the administrative staff or the support staff, coaching staff as well. Next slide. But we're not healthcare administrators. We are on the medical team. Who do we call when that happens? And as athletic trainers, I would hope that you would feel comfortable contacting your medical team, your local hospital, your team physician, the athlete's physician. Hopefully you feel comfortable also speaking with your administrative staff. Many schools will have some resources available to try and handle mental health crises, even if there's not one with the athletic team itself. And we can always involve parents, we can always involve family who have a vested interest within their health. Once again, we can also always call an EMS for their assistance as well. Next slide. So in summary, I'd just like once again to emphasize that when it comes to striving to help our athletes succeed from a mental or behavioral health standpoint, we need to remember that they are people first and athletes second. If we are able to foster these various well-being measures, we will create someone who is a whole person, someone that's able to withstand adversity, who's able to be resilient under stress, someone who's able to be enough within those trying circumstances. And I wish you very good luck as you go throughout that within your role, and know that I thank you very much for the wonderful work that you do. I've told many people I'm only as good as my athletic training staff, because you do so much. You do so much for our student athletes and our other athletes, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your time today. And I welcome questions or any comments that may result.
All right, fantastic. And, I'm getting the question box opened here. There we go. Well, certainly, if anyone has questions, they can post those into the question box. I'm happy to bring those out. Thank you very, very much for presenting today. I'm not sure is this first thing in the morning for you?
This is 11 o'clock now, so not first thing in the morning. I've been up for a while. But thank you. Yeah.
All right, wonderful. It looked like, in case you're curious, it looked like right around the kind of maximum point, we had somewhere right around 60 people attending. So yeah, wonderful. Really good. Yes, attendance certainly.
Once again, thank you very, very much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And would you want to provide any contact information for the people who are attending, or because I think one of the biggest things that you were showing was how the EAP implementation with the school, is that the current school you were at, or is that the previous university that you were working with?
That is the previous university I was working with, correct. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yes, and so in case there are other folks, just having the ability to not reinvent the wheel is always nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, if you want to contact me regarding what that looks like more formally, I'm very, very happy to share that with you. Many of those slides were these slides that we shared to present that with school administration and coaching staff, and so feel free if you want to utilize those or borrow from them. I'm very happy to have you do that. That was the result of about a year's worth of work, and was actually spearheaded by a very passionate athletic trainer within that institution who felt that we needed to have better mental health resources for our student athletes. And so that's their brainchild, and I'm very happy to present it to you.
We have a comment that follows with a question coming from Robert. Great talk, Dr. Miller. What pressing research gaps in athlete mental health could inform the practices of athletic trainers as they transition their skills to the industrial sector, especially in light of the declining presence of athletic trainers in traditional settings?
Boy, that is a really good question. I may have to think for just a moment if that's all right. I think that there is pretty good crossover between the student athlete world and the occupational athlete world. And in fact, I would say that there's probably a greater need for mental health resources within our occupational athletes than within our student athletes, even though the need there is great as well. And so similarly, those same questions that I think we've talked about in terms of how do we normalize the conversation for the occupational athlete? How do we help them recognize that this is not just a part of athletic performance, it's a part of life performance. These are things that help everyone function better under stress, and we all have stress. We all have trials that we're undergoing, whether that's in our family, within our finances. And so those same tools, I think we can really utilize. Maybe the resources are slightly different. Maybe we need to work a little bit more to understand what the resources within the community are. But I really think that we can use even those same levels of worry or those same grades of behavioral health crisis within the occupational environment. There can be direct crossover, I think, even if we're not seeing these people throwing javelins or things like that. They still need to function very well within their occupational environment. And so I think that we can use those same kinds of tools. Screening within that environment, I think, would be an interesting question. That's probably more of a legal question, but I do wonder about that, how much we're able to do to identify those kind of problems within our occupational athlete population.
And so additionally, how can these trainers remain essential in promoting mental health and well-being in corporate environments? And what future research directions should be prioritized to strengthen these efforts?
Well, that's a very good question. There are currently, with all of the moves to more remote work and then back at the office kind of work and then hybrid kind of work, there's a lot that we don't know regarding optimal athletic function within that kind of switch or that kind of revolution that we're undergoing right now. And so that's a huge research gap. I think that we need to examine what's the proper balance between more worker guided occupations versus those that are more top heavy. Regarding what can athletic trainers do, my hope is that the athletic trainers and the medical teams which they function within would get into the boardroom, would be a part of that that discussion of work optimization. We know so much of the productivity environment that's associated with worker well-being, and so my hope is that we'd be able to advocate for ourselves as medical providers to be able to show our value within that boardroom to help increase productivity, reduce sick days, reduce injured time, and really help to enhance what the business side is trying to maximize as well. There's a huge space for that, I think, but that requires being in that room, making those statements, showing our value, and trying to advocate for those we serve.
The next question comes from Seth, and Seth asks, how would you spend time or how would you approach connecting with a patient who is difficult to approach or connect with?
Okay. The first thing I think it does come down to is time. I'm kind of just envisioning what happens in my personal interactions. If I walk into the patient room and you can kind of sense that there's maybe some prickliness that's associated within that room. The first thing I think is what air am I giving off? What kind of aura do I project? Do I appear happy? Do I appear welcoming? Do I appear interested within that person? Is there some way that I have inconvenienced that person? If they've been sitting there for a long time, do I acknowledge that I'm sorry for your wait, thank you for your patience with coming to see me? I think a person needs to show a degree of personal interest as much as the other person's willing to show you. Generally what I try and do is once I'm through with all of my business questions, usually ask that person, what do you do for work or for fun? And that gives them the opportunity to share those things that are meaningful to them. And sometimes that opens that bridge. Sometimes they will open and shut it very quickly. And that just lets me know this is what this person's ready to share with me during this encounter. But showing personal interest, I think, is really important. I think it separates us from maybe someone that's just trying to do more of a transactional kind of an interaction. I think bridge building is really important to a person's healing. And if we can do that more effectively, then we've just created one more avenue that we can use to help them. Each person's different, and each person is going to present a different front to you, and so that won't always be the right recipe to work. But the more that we practice at that, I think the better we get at it. But those are some of the things that I would share with you.
Wonderful. And so certainly that we have hit our time a little bit more, but some really good questions here that I wanted to get through. Thank you very much again for a fantastic talk, Dr. Miller, today. And thank you to everyone for attending. I hope that everyone has a very wonderful day.
Thank you so much.